Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another UIC Jamaica Liberty TV live session. This is Joseph Patterson, President of the UIC. I just wanted to talk to you this morning briefly about the George Wright situation. I'm quite disheartened and very disappointed in the Prime Minister and the JLP for actually sending Mr. Wright on a leave of absence instead of outright firing him from their party. Mr. Wright is captured on video, and this video shows him brutally beating a woman, which allegedly is his wife. He has been identified in the video, as far as I understand, by the police. He was on the run, keeping himself away from police interrogation. I understand that the woman is forward to testify. And we see that a lot in the Jamaican environment where women are threatened. Women know that their lives are at risk if they come forward and openly testify. These men who want to beat them. And I'm sure Prime Minister is fully aware of our culture here in Jamaica. I'm sure that all of the members of the government, all of the MPs on both sides are fully aware of the culture in Jamaica and know that for years our women have been the punching bag who abuse them for a number of reasons. You know, they abuse them because of the economic situation in which many of these women find themselves because of economy, which is devoid of as many opportunities as it needs to have. And for the Prime Minister to have chosen to have a meeting with Mr. Wright and not divulge to the public the contents of that meeting to let us know whether or not Mr. Wright has fessed up to his actions or not is quite disturbing. And to behind closed door decide to simply send Mr. Wright off quietly uh, to sit somewhere, tell us that he's on leave of absence instead of demanding fines or be fired from the party immediately. I know the structure of Jamaica may be such that men who beat women are protected by the law, and these are bad laws. And so I admonished and encouraged the Prime Minister to act very swiftly to change those laws. We cannot afford to have laws that protects criminals. We need to have laws that protects the citizens, the law-abiding citizens of Jamaica. And so the Prime Minister needs to act with the same swiftness that he has acted to change laws to implement draconian measures on the Jamaican people uh, in order to supposedly respond to the COVID crisis. We need the Prime Minister to act very swiftly to change the laws to protect women from abusive men and to protect citizens from violence. And instead, the Prime Minister and the Jamaica Labour Party chosen to protect the per of a crime, uh, somebody who has used violence to settle whatever this he might have with this female, and he was clearly in a dominant position. He was clearly, the aggressor in the film that we saw, and brutally uh, beat this lady with a chair and dragged her almost in the dirt and bullied her, beat her up, and intimidated her. And all of this was caught on camera. And the Prime Minister summoned this individual a while before he made himself available to meet with the leadership of the JLP. And then the outcome of that meeting is simply that he goes on a leave of absence. Now, of course, if they had a discussion and the gentleman told the Prime Minister and team that no, man, that's not me in the video at all. No, I would never do such a thing. That's not me at all, and I have nothing to do with that. Then, of course, all the Prime Minister has to say is that after consultation with Mr. Wright, they see no reason to um, take any action because Mr. Wright is not the person in the video. But if Mr. Wright is the person in the video and the Prime Minister is now aware that Mr. Wright is the person in the video, then the Prime Minister has every responsibility to immediately require Mr. Wright's resignation. And if Mr. Wright fails to resign, the Prime Minister and his party have every right to immediately expel Mr. Wright, Mr. George Wright, from the party. And having expelled him from the party, the Speaker of the House, a female herself, should not oppose and should encourage a member of the House to bring a motion to the floor of the House to sanction Mr. Wright and to have him removed from the House as a member of Parliament while the police complete their investigation. But as you all know, given that the law is so construed as Mr. Wright may get off if the female is pressured, intimidated, and bullied into not pressing charges, then he would not be found guilty in a court of law. But Mr. Wright is guilty in the court of public opinion, one strongly supported by the video recording that was seen. And so it is critical that the Jamaican people not allow this to pass. And the UIC will not allow it to pass. As a party, we stand firmly to protect the life, liberty, and property of all Jamaicans equally. The only time those three things should be in question is if you choose to violate the law of liberty and infringe on the life, liberty, and property of others. So we definitely need to have action from the Prime Minister, and the Prime Minister has clearly not acted in an appropriate manner. But he is notorious for this. He has normally sought to protect those who have come out of the public spotlight. You might recall Senator Roel Reid and the education department scandal, and you might recall the Petrojam. Prime Minister is known to try to defend and protect those who are engaged in things contrary to good governance and good principles. And so I'm not surprised that the Prime Minister and his party have chosen to protect Mr. George Wright. But we, the people, we, the United Independence Congress, will not sit idly by and allow this to go. We demand of the Prime Minister, we demand of his party, we demand of the Parliament that they sanction Mr. Wright, expel him from their party, expel him from the House of Parliament, and change the laws so that people like Mr. Wright will not try to get away with brutalizing our women. We need to make sure we have strong laws, Mr. Prime Minister, not just to combat the foreign masters' COVID issue, but we need to have strong laws to combat violence in Jamaica. And so far, only have interest in pursuing COVID and NIDS. Those are the two most pressing matters for you. You think the most important thing is to bring in a new identification system that will allow you to have some kind of surveillance power on Jamaicans, and you would like to do everything possible to lock down Jamaica and force, it appears, the people into taking a vaccine that your foreign masters sanction. You won't take vaccine from Cuba, and you are instead pushing for a substance which is not even a vaccine, as far as I'm told. It's something else. So we want you to shift your effort, Prime Minister, from pursuing those agenda and pursue the agenda which is important to Jamaican people, like eliminating the crime and violence situation. that has been created over the last 75 years by your party and that of the opposition. It's time, Prime Minister, that we have a Jamaica that is safe, that we have a Jamaica that is clean, that we have a Jamaica that is orderly. Your is not the best one for Jamaica, Mr. Prime Minister. Your focus us into all accepting a vaccine is not the best interest of Jamaica. Your focus of forcing NIDS on the Jamaican people is not the best for Jamaica. What is important is that you control the crime problem and that you kill uh, the perpetration of violence against Jamaican women and children. Right now, your policies are hurting our children. Many of them are out of school. I see them every day in my community. They're not in school and they're not being supervised properly and they're not receiving an education. So, you, Mr. Prime Minister, by your own actions, are putting many Jamaican children behind. You're leaving them behind because they don't have the technology, they don't have the internet access. Some don't even have electricity. Many are not even in a good home environment, and school is a respite for them. School is an opportunity to get away from an otherwise negative community. And your actions, Mr. Prime Minister, have exposed these children to um, greater dangers. You have put already at risk children at greater risk, Mr. Prime Minister. And that needs to stop. So instead of protecting George Wright and uh, pursuing the foreign masters' agendas of NIDS and lockdowns of our people in an effort to box us in, it appears, to take this vaccine, focus on Jamaicans, focus on the issues of Jamaica and our need for a safe environment. Our women, our children need to be safe. All Jamaicans need to be safe. And you promised us back in 2015, 16, you denounced the then government, and rightly so, because they had failed miserably. And you said that you would have done better. You promised us that we'll be able to sleep with our windows and our doors open. And to date, Mr. Prime Minister, the situation is worse than ever. We cannot sleep with our windows and doors open. Your promise would uh, create a 4% growth in the economy. And in 5 years, it's now over 5 years, Mr. Minister, and that has not happened. And you can't blame COVID for it because your failure was long recorded before COVID came. So it's not COVID why you failed to achieve the 4% growth in the economy. You're either incompetent or unwilling to do what needs to be done to improve our economy. I believe it was your finance minister who promised that we could have a $10 per hour minimum wage. I don't see that yet, Mr. Prime Minister. You have not been able to increase the minimum, of course, or minimum wage. But since that's something of importance to you, since that is your Mr. Prime Minister, that you by now, after having more than 5 years in office, you would have been able to implement your signature policy of safety and economic growth. Instead, what we have done is increase it and not improve the quality of life for the vast majority of Jamaicans. Yes, yeah, but were those the right and best to fix? And what have we given up in for that? You know, what have we gotten in return? Many of those roads are now washed out. If you drive from St. Elizabeth to traversing the roadway, uh, you know, all the way through Spurtree Hill, Manchester, to Clarendon, you'll see that many of the roads that you fixed are now washed out. You see that the potholes are getting bigger, like crater. The roads that were fixed less than 12 months ago are now gone. Mr. Prime Minister, a properly done asphalted road is supposed to last anywhere from 14 to 16 years. That the roads that are produced by your government and that of previous tend to not be able to stand up to more than a few months. Something is wrong, Mr. Prime Minister. We expected you to get to the bottom of that. You're the first post independence uh, prime minister, somebody born after so-called independence. But you have not brought any difference. You have not shown us that you're different from the rest. You're still practicing the same kind of trickery, political trickery, as was done before. Time it have led us to where we are today. So my question is, what difference making, Mr. Prime Minister? How are you different from all those who have led us down the path where we are? The path of an unsafe, unclean, and unjust society, where corruption is the norm. You want to get something done at every turn faces you. If you're not prepared to to pay a man for something outside of the normal process, you won't get through, or you have to spend long hours and suffer great inefficiencies and additional costs. Mr. Prime Minister, crime is costing businesses 18 to 19% of their operating costs. How can you run a country? How can you run a country and talk increasing production and productivity when, Mr. Prime Minister, security accounts for 18 to 19% of our operating budget? You are destroying the opportunities for jobs to be created, Mr. Prime Minister. And so it's time that you do something different. And you're not. I mean, there's no reason why you can't just simply remove George Wright from your party. The evidence is there. What else did you want? Would it be only, you'd only act if he had actually killed the woman? You must take a stance, Mr. Prime Minister. You must stand up for what is right. And you must say, not in my party. Just like our Bruce Golding, not in my party about certain things. Time for you to say, not in my party, and dismiss the right immediately from the party. Don't even wait for the legal system to take its course. You already have enough information. You know that the right has done something terribly wrong. And we're fortunate as a people that it's captured on video, because if captured on video, it will be worse, because as you can see, you have already the, the woman has already been intimidated, and so she's obviously afraid to come forward. And I can just imagine the amount of placed on her. You're going to ruin the money. You're going to destroy the party. You're going to do, Mr. Prime Minister, you must stand above that. You must say this is not about defending the party or anything. This is about what is right and what is wrong. And is wrong. He's wrong. He's wrong. He's wrong. And don't try to cover up this like you've done with other misdeeds that have been done by members of your party. Mr. Wright is wrong for what he has done, and you need to act swiftly, Mr. Prime Minister, to remove him from the party. I'm not really asking you, I'm demanding it on behalf of the Jamaican people, because I know every well-thinking Jamaican would stand with me in the UIC to say Mr. Wright is wrong and he should be removed. If that video footage is him, and I understand that the police said it is him, and the only reason they can't act is because our laws are antiquated. Our laws are designed to protect women beaters. Now, that might be true, but don't make the law be a shackle to you, Mr. Prime Minister. We have seen several incidences where you have tried to skirt the law, where you forced off your own party to sign undated resignation letters that you would behave that against them should they not be your rubber stamp in this. So we saw where you tried to go around the law and you got caught. Or, Mr. Prime Minister, you tried to manipulate the Chief Justice by making his position instead of a full appointment so that you could control him indirectly. And if he doesn't do what you want, then you could rescind his appointment when the law said it should have been a permanent appointment. And only because the Bar Association stood up to you and other Jamaicans stood up to you that you pulled back. Okay, you couldn't push it through. So we know, Mr. Prime Minister, that you have no problem trying around a law that you think is in your way. We saw, Mr. Prime Minister, where you tried to extend the secrecy around meetings so that those information are not disclosed to Jamaicans for another 75 years. So we know, Mr. that you are no newbie onto trying to beat the system. So the system right now as a law that protects women beaters. Mr. Prime Minister, go around that law by firing George from your party. Go law by instructing the Speaker of the House to entertain a motion to expel Mr. Wright from the House of Representatives for having been brought disrepute upon the House. And let me go beyond just you, Mr. Prime Minister, and speak to the women caucus. All the women in the JLP who sit down and allow this to happen are not raising their voice loud and clear. And all women of the PNP in the House who are not raising their voices loud and clear to demand that Mr. George Wright be thrown out of the House and be thrown out of the party. All the women who are not raising their voice right now and demanding such an action are unworthy of the position that they hold. They do not represent the women of Jamaica and the girls of Jamaica. They do not represent the people of Jamaica. Like you, Mr. Prime Minister, they would be a travesty, a disappointment, if not a disgrace, for having chosen to side with such a brutal woman beater that was captured on video, Mr. Prime Minister. I strongly urge all parliamentarians, male and female, to stand up for justice. No. Stand up for the rights of Jamaicans. No. Stand up for this woman, this poor woman who might be terrified. Maybe her whole economic well being is tied up with this man and she's fearful. Maybe she has been threatened by people who work for him or work with him, maybe even from his own party. I can just imagine the amount of pressure to say, don't press charges, don't press charges. And you, Prime Minister, and all the House of Representatives and in the Senate, you know this is the Jamaica we live in. You know that this is how women are pressured not to report sexual harassment. You know how many of our girls have been raped. They lost their virginity through rape. You know that sexual harassment in the public is a normal feature of Jamaican life, made normalized by bad governance, a failure of our government to defend and protect the rights and integrity of our women. And here it is again, Mr. Prime Minister, you and the entire parliament is about the Jamaican people, is about to fail the Jamaican women by not acting swiftly to Mr. Wright. Mr. George Wright must be removed. It cannot be, Mr. that he merely goes on a leave of absence. The punishment doesn't fit the crime, Mr. You know people are looking at the or the people anyway, I have some guests. Let me welcome now. Douglas, hear me clearly. hear me, Mr.
I'm sorry. I'm not sure why the feed it feels breaking up a bit.
Dawson? Uh, can you hear me, Miss Natalie? My head, see if that in the end. How, can
Yes.
you hear
Yes.
me?
Yes, definitely. Can hear you now.
It's better now.
Yes.
Yes, better.
I, I wonder if it's where you hear me all the time. But, oh, welcome, welcome. I was talking about the George in particular, and asking the Prime Minister to do the honorable thing of a woman. The Prime Minister, we all know it, a culture of men and their of women being a to charges, various sometimes reasons, sometimes fear of their life. You know, the woman in question, his wife apparently is might be under pressure, pressure from don't press charges and destroy the man's life. It is not there to support no law against her. So this is maybe press charges. Knows that the Labour Party they have close right with him and say on a leave of absence. That's a slap in the face, signaling to the team. They're not there to. Uh, what Mr. Olness should be doing is, my gosh, I created. We must teach them with the same rapidity. We change the laws for it. I must check for it right. Instead, they meet, send the man. If it's you, with Natalie, is okay. Mr. Doug, jump in.
Right. Believe me, on these charges, I'm not surprised by the reaction of the JLP. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Right. I'm saying I'm
Yes,
not
yes, I can hear
surprised.
you. I can.
Not surprised that the actions of the JLP, because we always see a trend whenever any of these high ranking or somewhat high ranking officials come under fire, they are protected under the system that is out to trick us all and keep us in mental bondage. So I'm not surprised at all at that. Um, what they're trying to do is, on some levels, damage control, because anything that affects a member of their party affects the overall party in the views of the people. And in this way, it is injustice, even if they're trying damage control. Because if you just get a little slap on the wrist and sent to your corner for a little while, what does that do in the eyes of justice? If it was, let's say, their opponent, who is very weak at the moment, the PNP, uh, they would have blasted it out of the waters. But yet, when it comes time for self judgment, there is none. So there is just this ever present political bias and injustice. And when it comes to self correction, it's never there. But they can prosecute the other man.
Yeah, a, a it's a serious hypocrisy by proper governance. if it's a PNP power, brimstone, like a crime file, you don't fire brimstone NP for dealing. He should crime and violence and brimstone to fall down upon his failure. Here he is now fighting the weaker by protecting right in the same is on the uh, self and representing the people of Jamaica. So it's a club, and they're protecting each other. And we, the Jamaican people, must suffer as they protect each other and protect their club expense, because they're using our tax dollars to protect each other, protect their club. And it's time for us to get their club and get rid of their access to our tax dollars and turn those dollars into protecting the life, liberty, and property rights of Jamaicans. What do you say to that, Miss Yui? Can you hear us?
Yes,
Go
I
ahead,
can hear you.
Natalie. Your turn. Yes, I can hear you, man. Go right ahead.
I'm in complete agreement. I don't know what to say. This is something that we see time and time again in the public space, where somebody who is either politically associated or associated by virtue of their business level, they commit crimes. They do they do things that they shouldn't be doing, holding the offices that they hold, and in the end, it gets shoved under the rug. You hear this one thing that looks like maybe something is happening until the news doesn't focus on it. They just focus on bring up other things that are happening, and it basically comes out of our minds that we're not focused on. We're not. It's there, but we're not really thinking about that because we have our problems, we have our issues to face. We don't get justice. We don't get their treatment in front of the law when we go, when we err or when we are accused of whatever it is. But
Mm.
when it's in plain eyes that they've done something wrong, they still get it. They get off free of in most cases, or with a slap on the wrist, and those kind of
Absolutely.
things stop.
Yeah, obviously there's a different set of treatment. If you notice, if you the prime minister wants to jump on you if you fail to wear a mask. The prime minister wants to jump on you if you don't social distance according to his standard. The prime minister wants to jump on you if you don't go lock up in your house because I'm saying you must stay home because of curfew time. But him can't jump on Mr. George Wright for brutally beating up a woman. That is not as important to the prime minister as you wearing a mask or social distancing or not going to a funeral or not going to church service. Those things are far more important to the prime minister than crime and violence. So we can have men of authority and power beating up women, abusing young girls, and we can have children out of school suffering for a year now, not receiving proper tuition. But the prime minister will spend time and meet in private with George Wright and collude with him as to how we can shuffle this one under the carpet while leaving the Jamaican people exposed. Well, he's sending a message, He's sending a message to all the woman beaters out there. It is okay. Beat them and you will be protected by the law. Beat up
Quite
the
the
woman
contrary.
them. Yeah, beat up the woman them and you will be protected by the law because the current law says if you can intimidate her so that she can't come and testify, then you're okay. If you have economic power over her, so if she go and testify, she going to lose economic power. Don't worry, the law is here to protect you. So that's the message the prime minister is sending. That men, it is okay to beat up women, and women, you must continue to be afraid and don't testify, because I, the Prime Minister, will not come out and fight for you the way I'm fighting for the foreign masters' COVID laws, the way I'm fighting to make sure that vaccine that our foreign masters say you should take, I will fight for that. I will do everything in my power. I'll lock down your business. I will lock you in your house. I will charge you fees and penalties if you break those rules. But if you beat up woman, it's okay. That is the message the Prime Minister is sending. I see Miss Shernet is on the call. Miss Shernet, welcome. Miss Shernet, welcome to the call. Yes, please. Welcome. Good morning. How are you?
Oh, thank God I'm mute. I was trying
Excellent.
to unmute myself, but finally, yes. Yes. Yeah, I wasn't even sure if I was to be on this call. I just thought, I just saw it there on the platform
Yeah,
that
man.
you're
You're welcome. You're welcome. We're talking about George Wright and the soft glove treatment that the Prime Minister and his party is giving a woman beater. The Prime Minister seems to be comfortable with protecting Mr. George. What do you think about that?
I saw it. It's just unbelievable. And
Yeah.
if we don't do something, sooner or later you just realize that there will be only men in Jamaica and there won't be any women anymore.
Yeah.
If it
Can you
continues,
believe we have 18 women in Parliament and there is no outrage? I would
yeah.
think, I mean, I am a man, and when I saw that video, listen, it's husband and wife getting the problems all the time. They might argue, they might even have some physical altercation, but that was brutal. The man dragged the woman, beat her with a chair, intimidate her. She was so vulnerable. She hardly even fought back. Now, how can a prime minister, how can 18 women in parliament watch that video and not come out with greater frustration and anger than what they have come out with for the COVID crisis? How can they be so aggressive to give us a vaccine that they don't even know about, something that they're not sure about, they don't understand how it works, they don't know for sure how it is? But we're all sure that this woman was beaten up. We're all sure that this woman was beaten up violently by a man in Jamaica. And the police tell us that they identify who that man is. And the police tell us that their hands are tied because the law says she have to come and decide to press charges. So their hands are tied by the law. But the Prime Minister's hand is not tied because the Prime Minister is in a position to dismiss him from the party. The Prime Minister is in a position to instruct the House, the Speaker of the House, to entertain a motion to dismiss him from the House, and the Prime Minister has the microphone to come to Jamaica and say, I am 100% against this, and this man needs to pay. And the Prime Minister has the power, like he did with COVID, to quickly ram through a law to say, let's change the law that we protect the victim. Let us protect the victim and stop protecting the criminals. And the Prime Minister instead chose that Mr. Wright should get some time out while the rest of the women in Jamaica remain scared for their lives, and while the men in Jamaica are confirmed in their position that you can continue to beat up the woman them. That's what the Prime Minister has done. I'm ashamed. It is a disgrace. Mr. Douglas, what you say to that, sir? It is a disgrace.
I'm in total agreement. You cannot break it down any simpler than that.
Yeah.
But the sad truth is that type of let's say partialism only goes for them. You the regular man, if you do that and is reported, you're going to jail and you're gonna be charged. So but it's still in the mind of men that puts it up there that you can beat women and little or nothing will come out of it. Even though you might be charged or whatever their due process is. So it is psychological training from the perspective of those who are supposed to be leading, right? So this is what they're leading the perspective of people to. Is this a good example? Is this a bad example?
You made a very good point, Mr. Douglas. the prime minister, the leaders of our party, they are the ones who set the tone. They're the ones who set the culture. So the culture of Jamaica that you see today is a culture that has been shaped and created by those who have been in power for the last 75 plus years. And who has been in power? The same two party from 1944 until now have been guiding us. So when you hear people say Jamaicans in discipline, point to the two party them. When you hear people say Jamaica is corrupt, point to the two part of them. When you hear people say Jamaica is full of crime, point to the two part of them. When you hear our education system is failing, point to the two part of them. When they say the healthcare system is failing, point to the two part of them. Yes, Mr. Douglas.
If I may interject, it's so simple to break down these criminals, these highly
Yes,
decorated criminals, because look at it. The diaspora offered to be a part of Jamaica's crime solution, and the
yes.
Minister of Justice just shoot them down live on that stream,
Hear
right?
what him said.
But
Hear what him said. Hear
yes,
what him said, Mr. Douglas. He said to them, just send us your donation. We don't have any other place for you. So you in the diaspora, just hold your corner and send us the money and shut up. No, my God, Mr. Douglas, most of Jamaica's best and brightest had to run away from Jamaica to go find opportunity. You understand? Only those of us who couldn't get a visa is still here, and a few of us who chose not to go. But the Jamaica's bright. You want to find a student who got to university and get a degree in engineering or aeronautical engineering or nursing or teaching. If them good and them go apply for a visa, them get it and gone. But why do they do that? They don't want to leave Jamaica. People leave Jamaica because of the stagnant economy, the corruption, and the crime. So they go somewhere else where the opportunities are better, the crime factor is less, and they have a better standard of living. Now, these people have gone away. Many of them have done very well in the fields of science and engineering and technology, done very, very well and social development, and they want to come now and help Jamaica. They come and offer to help Jamaica, and the prime minister's deputy. Watch me now. The prime minister's deputy, the deputy minister of prime minister, and the minister for national security says to the diaspora, "All we want is your money. We're not interested in your intellect and your expertise." My God, what kind of government is this?
but
Miss Yui, go ahead. Yes.
sorry, I guess they took us for a bunch of whoa, yeah. I
Yes,
guess
just
they
a
took
minute.
us
Yes.
for a bunch of what do you call it, low thinking monkeys or something. Because
Yes.
if they thought that we didn't see or hear through all of that, I guess they don't even know that we are still human beings over here, you know.
Yeah.
And
I tell
that's a point before following that declaration by the Minister of National Security, the point came up that if these people in government are to ever allow real independent justice, they will be implicated in all levels of society.
absolutely.
All
That is
levels.
the singular reason why they cannot tackle crime and violence properly in Jamaica. Because those who are a part of the crime and violence would
Are the
find
stem.
themselves. Yes.
They're the stem. But what's the
From
root?
yeah, the root cause of crime and violence in Jamaica, the root cause of the excessive crime and violence in Jamaica is bad governance. The root cause of crime and violence in Jamaica is the GLP and PNP. They were the ones that brought the guns in. They were the ones that
Set
put the
up the
guns in the
garrisons,
hands of the and set
right?
up the garrisons, supported the gangs, provided political cover, provided legal cover, provided economic cover for gangs in Jamaica. And
And
now,
one
yes,
just to add a point. Not only
yes,
that, they hid it through the history,
yes,
because to control a nation, control what they
yes,
learn. And in the education
absolutely.
system, you never hear of those
No,
sides
you
of what
never.
the government did.
You have never heard in a history book in Jamaica that is used in our school that would clearly identify the corruption, criminality, the gangs, the guns, that was a result of these two political parties. And so because of that, the children grew up not knowing. When I see young people today, when I see anybody under 40 years old supporting one of these two parties, I said to myself, my gosh, them truly don't know what happened. Anybody who is under 40 years old who brings themselves to support one of these two parties must be extremely ignorant, very unaware, or very wicked. It, there's no way for you to know what these
Or
two parties
let's
are
throw
doing
in
to
another
Jamaica.
one.
Yes.
Let's throw in another one. Too brainwashed to acknowledge it.
Well, ignorant. I mean, if you're brainwashed, so you know what's going on, you know. So, but back to Mr. George, right? Miss Yui, do you have any more comments on that? Oh, I see you trying to do your motherly duties there, so I understand. um, Miss Shernette, your connection is a bit poor, but please,
Oh
any
yeah,
other thoughts?
surprised that I, because usually, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. Even recently when, I was watching, when the Prime Minister had an interview. I can't remember what the interview was about, and then he
Mhm.
was like, being sarcastic, speaking about 2 pound of like chicken back, and I thought
Yes.
I was the only one who realized that. I'm like, this man is teasing the Jamaican
Yeah.
people.
He was
No,
mocking us. He's
the
mocking us.
poor. The poor
The
is the
poor.
problem.
Yeah,
That's
the
the
poor.
message
Yeah.
now. The
Yes.
poor is the problem. And then he tried
Yes.
to retract it. But he
Yes.
did not, from the moment he made those statements, he lost a whole lot of Jamaicans. I have
Yeah.
people, I have
Yes.
friends in the
uh,
army who have to go through the ghetto areas and so on. They're saying everywhere you go, that's what they're talking about.
Yeah.
yeah, I was shocked, and I thought I'm really happy that the Jamaican, the people in Jamaica, and people, or I know that people from abroad, because you don't used to having a prime minister or a president talking like that. You understand? And when I saw it, I was, I couldn't even. I just. I even deleted it.
No,
I just
I,
can't watch it.
I
Miss,
miss. I was
one second,
shocked.
Mr. P.
Hold on.
Let me just
Hold on. Hold on. No, hold on a second. Miss Shernette,
Yeah, I can't hear.
you're mute, Mr. P. Somehow.
when I heard the Prime Minister start to list
Hold
out.
on, Madam Shernette, since you're not speaking, could you mute
Mute,
because we're getting
mute,
feedback.
yeah, mute your mic for a second. Mute your mic. Just mute for a second. When I heard the Prime Minister list out the things that the poor Jamaican do and then attach them to saying that they are the problem, they're the ones who are not wearing their masks, they're the ones who are not social distancing, they're the ones who are not staying in. Now, the Prime Minister expressed a total disregard for the condition of life of Jamaica that he, in his 25 years in Parliament, have helped to create. It is him why they have to go buy Big Jilla aisle, half pound of flour, a pound of chicken back. It is him why they have to go to the corner shop daily because they live hand to mouth. It is him and his party and the other party that created the Jamaica today where people are living and struggling hand to mouth. And dare him come now. Dare him come now and mock and ridicule and assign blame to the poor people of Jamaica. I was disgusted as you were, Miss Shernette. I couldn't believe it. I had to watch it 6 times to see if I was hearing correctly. 6 times I watch it and say, is this what the Prime Minister of Jamaica? And he has a smile on his face, a smug smile on his face while he's listing out our poverty, listing out our struggles as it's a joke and then ascribing to us the blame. But guess what is the reason for the spike? It was him calling elections 9 months before. Elections could have waited until June this year based on the law. But he chose to call election early in order to quickly cement power because he had misled the people into thinking that it was because of him why things were so good when the full effect didn't reach here yet according to the structure that they have. And so what the Prime Minister did was to say, listen, I'm going to call election now, to win power now. and not care about the people. He was locking us down before, he was stopping us from moving before, but for election purposes, he fly the gate and then now wants to blame the poor for his example. He
Ha-
said to the poor that this no real. For election purposes, the COVID no real. Is only when I don't want to have election, COVID is real. Yes, Mr. Douglas.
Right, and he had his island-wide mass gatherings, and who blamed the government for that? But guess what? This is what we've come to the realization of. It was
Yes.
all planned strategically because he knew that if that election was left to June this year, not a soul in Jamaica would vote him in as the prime minister, you know?
Mhm.
And they
Yes.
knew what was coming because everything is pre-planned, right?
Exactly.
Nothing that they're instigating now is new. They knew that with all of these draconian measures, that the
Mhm.
people of Jamaica would not be in favor of them.
He needed to have 5 more years under his belt so that he can carry out the foreign master's policy. Because he can't carry out their policy and win an election. If he carries out their policy, he loses. So he got 5 more years so that he could now do all the damage he needs to do to us, get the foreign master's money, and then when the next election come, he will have enough money to go and buy votes. My friends, thank you for your time. Thank you for joining us. I have to go now, but we shall continue. We will not allow George Wright, Andrew Oldest, the Jamaica Labour Party, Mark Golding, and the People's National Party to get away with continuing to abuse our women or having laws that protect criminals instead of laws that protect our women. Thanks again. Have a good one until we talk. All the best.
Thanks. All right.